Good afternoon, everybody in Europe. Good morning, good night, good evening, wherever else you are. And you are all very welcome to the 2021 European Learning and Teaching Forum. My name is Michael Murphy. I am currently the president of the European University Association, and I chair the Learning and Teaching Steering Group in the association. So you're welcome to a very topical topic, because this year we are going to discuss sustainability. Learning for sustainability on the one hand, and sustainable learning and teaching on the other hand. But before we go into the topic, I'm going to hand you over to Brussels to Tia Lukala, who will go through some of the technical instructions. So Tia.
Thank you very much, Michael. It is indeed my pleasure to be joining you all in this year's Learning and Teaching Forum, even in this slightly different setting that we would normally meet. And I will be guiding you through the event today and tomorrow together with Michael. A few technicalities to start with. The audience will have some ways to interact with us. Well, let's start with the fact that we are recording all the sessions, not all the sessions, but all the webinar type sessions of this year's forum, and they will be made available on EUA YouTube channel afterwards. And all those who have registered for the sessions will receive a link after the forum, or links to the recordings, so you will be able to access them directly and share them if you think, for instance, that your colleagues would benefit from having a look at them. So the materials will be available afterwards. But then to go to the part about interacting with us. While we do have a very talkative speakers, I hope in this event we do hope to hear from you as well. You have a couple of ways of doing it. First of all, you can write to the chat box, which I see that some of you have already found, and indeed there you can make greetings, tell us who you are. You can raise some technical questions or issues if you have. We have a colleague in the back end working on and answering any of such problems or trying to solve them with you. And then you can make other remarks. For instance, explain what your university is doing, or ask questions from the other participants. However, there is also a Q&A tab where we hope that you will focus your questions to the speakers. So there you can post your own questions, but I also encourage you to have a look at the Q&A section, even if you are not yourself asking something, because you will be able to vote as to what are, in your view, the most relevant questions, and then the session chairs will be picking them up and posing these questions to speakers. And finally, I draw your attention to the handout section, where you can find the relevant documents to each session. And for instance, right now, as we are in our first session of the forum, you can find the full program of the forum and also some interesting links to different kinds of videos. So there is more to watch on our YouTube channel. But here I leave the floor to Michael, who will be guiding us through this first session.
Thank you very much, Tia. The first session, as you all know from the program, addresses the matter of how we equip our students to thrive. How can higher education facilitate the skills that they will need in sustainable societies? So we're going to talk a lot about uniquely human skills and competences that we expect will remain in high demand, even at a time when artificial intelligence and robots are taking over many of the functions in society. So we're going to talk about exploring how learning and teaching can be designed to equip students for this new future, professionals, active citizens. Now, we're being joined this morning, very early for him, in Boston in the United States, by Joseph Aoun, who many of you will have heard of because he is a thought leader in higher education in the United States. And some of you will know him as a renowned scholar of linguistics. And he's, of course, the president of Northeastern University in Boston. He has been for about 15 years, which means that he has been in post about 3 times longer than the average US president today. Joseph was born in Beirut, and his early education took place there. He has degrees from St. Joseph University in Beirut, from the University of Paris, and his PhD in linguistics and philosophy was earned at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston. And he has written extensively on the subject we're going to talk about. So I'm going to say good morning to Joseph, who should be on screen right now.
Good morning and good day, everyone. Hi, Michael. It's great to be with you.
Thank you, and thank you for getting up early. Tell us a little bit about your university and what makes it unique or stand out among American institutions.
We are a global experiential research university, and we are experiential throughout. That means that all our programs, from the undergraduate programs to the master's and even the PhDs, are experiential. And there's, we have around 3,400 companies and NGOs and agencies worldwide working with us. So our students are embedded within these institutions for up to 6 months. And so, essentially what we are doing is integrating the learning in the classroom and the world experience.
And this applies to all your 30,000 plus students?
Yes, including now all our PhDs are experiential, where our PhD students are embedded, let's say, at Glaxo or other institutions, research institutions too. And they are working with them. And in a way, they are working on topics and issues that are translational and relevant for both institutions.
And this makes you unique and almost in scale, I would think, in the United States.
I think the uniqueness comes, as you said, Michael, from scale and also from the fact that experiential is comprehensive. We are unique in extending it to the masters and the PhDs.
Okay, so because you clearly are very, very closely connected to the employment world, and they're your partners in learning, how has this shaped your predictions for higher education in the coming years? And how did this experience shape your thinking on higher education?
Well, Michael, let me start by mentioning that working with companies and NGOs and agencies worldwide is a humbling experience, because you have, as an institution, to be in a listening mode, to understand where the trends are and what is happening. And so that's the first aspect that I want to stress. The second is that my thinking was shaped. Our thinking here has been shaped by, first, the students who, when they go on these co-ops, with extended co-ops, namely experiential experiences up to 6 months, or for some it's even more. They are practicing in the real world, and at the same time they are discovering what they are good at, what they are not good at, where they are discovering how to work with others in teams, how to have cultural agility, etc., etc. So this transformational aspect is led us around 100 years ago to rethink instruction. And the instruction, as I mentioned, is the integration of the classroom experience with the real world experience. The second aspect is that our researchers also, like many researchers in many universities, were creating new tools and new approaches that were making humans obsolete. You know, AI, robotics, etc. So that for us here as an institution is what is the mission of higher education. And the mission of higher education is to help people become robot proof. And I'll expand on that.
Yeah, I was going to come to that because, of course, you've become extremely well known in recent years for that that seminal book, and we might talk about some of the ideas you've shared there. The first one I might ask: obviously, curriculum content is going to have to change. What our focus on the learning outcomes we wish to see. You have some thoughts on that, on curricular reform, content reform?
Yes, I think the first aspect that is important to us is to look at what kind of curriculum do we need to have for the 21st century. And to start with that, let me mention that becoming robot proof is a lifelong journey. It starts very early on, and I'm going to focus, means that you are going to have certain proficiencies that we call and we dub humanics. What are they? The whole idea is, I'm sorry, let me see whether there is any problem here with that. Can you still see me? Okay, now I'm back. Okay, so what is humanics? We are saying that every tech literacy, namely understanding machine and how to interact with machine, the understanding the product of these machines, and that's what we call data literacy. And the third aspect is to practice and understand and integrate the human literacy. And what is the human literacy? Human literacy is what we humans do that machines will future, such as the ability to be innovative, creative, entrepreneurial, the ability to understand the body language of people, the ability to work with others and in different contexts, the ability to be culturally agile, ethical, and global. So we are saying that every student, that's your first step in becoming robot proof. So that's your first step in your journey. Now, this is only the beginning, because the studying humanics is not going to be enough. Why? Because working with people in teams, teamwork, etc., cultural agility, you can study that, you can read books about it, but it doesn't make you one. So this is where experiential a component, the experiential component is going to come and help you. How? Because through the experiential component, you're going to practice those, whether it's innovation, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it is working with others in teams, whether it is working with others coming from different horizons. So essentially what we are saying, to be robot-proof, start by understanding machines. And for that, machines cannot duplicate for the foreseeable future. And that's the beginning of your robot-proof journey. Understand machines and focus on what we humans are good at. And that's the beauty of experiential education. So, but experiential education has another aspect, another advantage. And the advantage is that when you are practicing experiential education, you are transferring your knowledge from a domain to another. So let me give you an example, and that's a concrete example. You know, we had a student in Bosnia some years ago. When she was a student of English literature, she went on a co-op, an extended co-op with an NGO. Was not an optimal situation. There was a war. And there were snipers sending fake news, fake information, mentioning that the bridges or the streets are safe and waiting for people to be there and then to kill them. So she started a program that debunked those fake news immediately, on the spot. And this was made available to everyone. So when we asked her, how did you manage to do that, you being an English literature person? And she said, well, when you study English literature, what you are doing is deconstructing and using your analytical tools to understand the text. And from this perspective, that's what I did. I used those tools to debunk the fake news. So that's a phenomenon that we call a wide transfer, far transfer. The learning specialists talk about far transfer. Well, that's an advantage that we have over machines. Machines do not have the ability to do a far transfer. You know, they can transfer from a domain to another, but not the far transfer situation. And so what I am saying is simple. Robot proof is a journey. It starts by mastering and practicing humanics. And humanics is the integration of three literacies: tech literacy, data literacy, and human literacy. And the experiential component will allow you to do the integration, to practice it, and also will differentiate you from machines.
Can I ask you, just on data literacy and technological literacy, obviously different disciplines will have their own specialized knowledge requirements. Do you provide this as a common core curriculum across the university for those that are not in specialized data and technology sectors?
Yeah. So we are seeking to achieve two things. One is for people to have that in the general curriculum, to have this proficiency, but also we have been building combined majors, not double majors, but combined majors, where you have faculty from different disciplines integrating their knowledge and lecturing and working with students along these lines. Now, I have to tell you, Michael, this year, for instance, we're a private university, so we received 75,000 applications for around 3,000 seats. And the trend for us has been the following. For the last 5-6 years, when we launched the notion of combined majors, over 40% of the students applying are applying for combined majors that are essentially integrating the tech and data literacy with the human literacy. That has been very appealing. So you have to our students. So you have students, for instance, interested in the sciences, also looking at ethics and ethical AI, etc. That's an example. And the environment is another example where you have various disciplines interacting. So that has been the growth for us.
Okay, so my questions tend to be a little practical. On the matter of experiential learning, you have you've had to develop a vast cohort of collaborators in employment, and that could be business or it could be in civic society, voluntary bodies, and so on. How do you prepare your partners to work with you so that the student is going to have what you might call the desired learning outcomes, what you've just been enunciating there?
As we mentioned earlier, Michael, in the previous conversations that we had, it's a partnership involving the students, the university, and the NGOs and companies and mission-driven agencies, etc. So what do? We prepare first the student to understand herself and to understand the institutions that she is applying to get. Those are not given. You have to apply and to earn them, because they are also, most of them, over 90% are paid, except some NGOs where we are helping ourselves because they don't have the ability to do it. So first, we are trying to get the student to understand herself and understand the institution that she will be joining for up to 6 months. Second, once we have that students there, we are asking the employer to have a mentor. And third, when the students are rejoining us, we are integrating that in the classroom, this experience in the classroom. And that's very important to us. The final point that I would say is that the students actually are finally the arbiters of all that, because their experiences are, they use social media. So when they have a great experience, they are documenting that and mentioning that to the others. And in addition, we have launched an app called Sail, where and this is an app it's a coaching app that will stay with the students throughout their lives, even after they leave, where they determine the learning outcomes that they are seeking. And they, during their experiential and after their experiential activities, they are documenting and inputting how it has been helping them with their learning outcomes, and they interact with our faculty and our advisors along these lines in order to assess the impact of this outcome.
Okay, I'll remind people that the opportunity to ask questions is open, and in fact, I can maybe throw the first question that I see with a number of votes from Neda Beberoglu. It's about doctoral students and how your system works for them. Do they do internships? How is it integrated in their research program? Do they earn credits? Is it mandatory? Is this experiential learning mandatory?
No, it's nothing is mandatory. And over 95% of the students overall in the university do it. They don't earn credit, and specifically to focus on the PhD students. We have, as I mentioned, partnerships with pharmaceutical companies and mentioned Glaxo. So let me focus on Glaxo. Our students are there, they are PhD students for a certain number of months working on joint research projects. And so they have essentially de facto 2 advisors, the faculty at the university and the research advisor at Glaxo. And they are integrating the research and the advisement together. This is good for us, and this is good for us, namely for our learners, and this is good for Glaxo, because in many ways, they are not only advancing the research, but also they are testing whether Glaxo is going to be a good fit for them, or whether they want to go elsewhere, or whether they want to go in to have a career teaching and doing research at a university. And similarly, for Glaxo, it is relevant and important because, in fact, they are testing whether the student, whether the researcher is going to fit in their environment. And we saw another benefit. So Glaxo started sending us their own researchers in order to spend time either as essentially as executive in residence, namely doing their postdocs, if you want, there with us, or some researchers didn't have a PhD and they targeted them for that, and they're doing that with us. So it becomes really an integration. So that's where we are with respect to that.
Okay, I'm looking at another question here. Well, several questions from Amy Gallagher. I'll pick one of them. You spoke a little bit about being aware of the trends that appeal to prospective students. And of course, you have to have an awareness of the evolution of work needs. How do you actually monitor this and respond to it as an institution, strategically, structurally,
yes,
process-wise?
Amy, thank you. Thank you for your question. And let me go back to what I said earlier. Becoming robot-proof is a lifelong journey. You're never really robot-proof. And to answer your question, let me focus on the following. We said that learners, at the beginning of their academic journey, are robot-proof through humanics and also experiential education. However, machines and AI systems are not static. They are evolving, and they're getting better, and they're displacing more jobs and creating other ones. So that means that we are constantly becoming obsolete, which means that we need to reskill ourselves, upskill ourselves, and reinvent ourselves. And from this perspective, we in universities in general have not been good at focusing at what we call lifelong learning. For instance, in the United States, we look at it as a second-class endeavor in general. This is a mistake. Why? Because over 76% of the learners now are lifelong learners, namely the percentage of undergraduate who are interested, or undergraduates who are interested in going to college is shrinking. Why? Because we are an aging population. So here we are in our sector, ignoring the large majority of learners. So what happened in the United States? Some of the for-profits stepped in and started providing that. And now universities are accepting that lifelong learning, it must be part of the core mission, little by little. So what we have done, to go back to Amy's question, is start a certain number of campuses in the United States, in Canada, and in the UK, and hopefully we will keep doing that, where we are focusing on professional education. So we have those campuses in Seattle, in San Francisco, in Charlotte, in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver, and obviously in London, in the UK. And why did we do that? Because you have to go to the lifelong learner. When people are fully employed and they need to invent themselves or reskill themselves, either through the employer or with others, by themselves, you need to be there for them. In other words, you don't expect them to come to your university. The university has to go to them. And that's why everything we are doing there has to be customized and personalized to the learner. So to answer your question, how do we know what is needed? Because we constantly survey and talk to the employers, to our partners, and see what the needs are. And I can tell you, for instance, in Canada, in the UK, and as an example, and in the United States, the digital transformation is something that the employers need. Allow me, Michael, to give you an example of that. At some point in Seattle, the Amazons of this world, namely the tech industry, challenged us and said, we don't have enough people in computer science. There is no pipeline. It's not enough nationwide. So can you create a new pipeline? That was a challenge, Amy. How can we do that? So we brought the tech industry to think with us, not to shape it, to say, what do you need? What are the outcomes you need? And then we devised a program called Align. And this program takes people who are in the workplace, who have studied physics, chemistry, English, economics, history, and the institutions, the companies, will give them an extended co-op internship for 12, 16, or 18 months. And while they are there, we convert them into computer scientists. So what we are doing is integrating, their work experience at the Amazons of this world, and the Googles of this world, and the Facebook of this world, with the learning that will get them to become computer scientists. So they are reinventing themselves. Well, we didn't set to think about this. It's really the interaction with those sectors, the tech sector, that led us to that. And this has been widely successful for us. We didn't foresee that it would be successful. And in the United States, it allowed women to integrate the tech industry and people of color. And you know that women and people of color in the tech industry are a minority. So this has been viewed as a success. And we received substantial fundings from Melinda Gates and also from the Googles and the Facebooks of this world, is saying, take this money and help other universities devise their own aligned program. So what's the upshot? The upshot is that we have to be humble and listen to what the needs are and customize our offering. We cannot say, let's build them and they will come. You have to build them in a customized and personalized way.
Can I ask a question, which is prompted partly by my own background? I did medicine, which was a classic for 2 centuries model of co-op, university, and the workplace, the apprenticeship part of medicine. Hugely resource intensive, that model. Do you think this would be a challenge for the university sector generally and globally to implement, that we might not have sufficient resources to manage that system?
Well, it's a great point, because I think that, look, let me give you an example. At our university, we have 150 people who are exclusively focusing on getting the students ready for their co-ops, their experiential component, and also working with the institutions, the companies, NGOs, etc., to find constantly new ones and also remove some, and also to make sure that this is a real learning experience. And so that, first of all, this requires an apparatus, but that's not where the issue is. The real issue has to do with our faculty. The faculty at Northeastern, when they come, to join us, they know that we have been doing it for over 100 years. This is not negotiable. And therefore, they're learning, and even now their PhD supervision have to be experiential. Now, So, which means that the faculty, when she teaches, is not going to be the person who is dispensing the knowledge. Because when the students come back and they were at Goldman or they were at any financial institution, when there is a crash, they are saying, look, we didn't live it this way. What you are talking about is not commensurate with our experience. So it's a humbling experience for the faculty too. Similarly, with the CDC, you mentioned the CDC, when the students is embedded there and is coming back, is looking at all the issues or the students faced, or when they are with NGOs, whether it's the United Nations or in Switzerland, etc. So the real issue for that is to convince and to work with the faculty to change the way they are approaching their knowledge, their dispensing knowledge. We were built, especially in the Western world, based on the monastic tradition, in terms of higher education, which means that we divorced ourselves from reality. I mean, we related ourselves to issues having to do with theology and God. And, now it's no longer possible to ignore the reality. The world is simply too interesting to ignore. And that's what we are learning. And that's what we are seeing through the pandemic too.
The pandemic prompts the next question, in fact. Rob Mayo has a very simple question. How has the pandemic impacted the experiential learning model in Boston?
Well, it's not only in Boston, it's throughout our network.
Yeah.
First of all, the transformation happened with the employers. Suddenly, employers went virtual. And during the pandemic, 75% of our co-ops became virtual because the employers wanted them to be virtual. And that is very interesting because as I mentioned, the whole idea is not to have knowledge in the classroom and experiential in another, but it's to integrate the classroom instruction with the world experience. So we had to work closely with the learner, the employer, and our faculty to precisely make sure that this integration continues to happen. So that's one example. There are many other examples, when you move into the virtual world. But let me finish this answer by saying the following. When we had the recession in the United States, and we saw at the beginning, that companies were laying off people, and we were worried about our co-ops. Are they going to remain? And as I mentioned to you, we have 3,000 companies, and they are in 146 countries. So we are diversified. What we saw when there was a global recession is that, in fact, even employers that were laying off people wanted to keep the co-ops. Why? Because it's a pipeline for talent, and they are more daring in some ways because they are starting with the tabula rasa. And also, ultimately, when they do it for 6 months, they are really testing them and seeing whether they want them for the future. So, and we are seeing the same thing happening here. The trends are following the same situation.
There is a question on the screen which follows on, I guess, from the COVID one, which addresses how you support your lecturers or your academic staff in online and hybrid courses, the risk of burnout while teaching online. And I suppose the question, in the end of the day, do you see our COVID experience actually fundamentally changing our approach to education, higher education, globally?
Yeah, I don't think it will fundamentally change, but it will accelerate certain trends that we have. So, as you know, when at least in the countries I know, including many European countries that were, we're involved in, many universities we are involved with, it's in some ways what happened last year at the beginning of COVID is that all the universities moved into online by brute force, okay, without any thinking about the product, about the outcome, etc., about the experience. And then the second phase started to change. So let me give you an example here with us at Northeastern. We put in all our classrooms, in all our campuses, something we called NUFlex. So what is NUFlex? NUFlex is a high-end Zoom that will allow the students who are remote to really feel that they are in the classrooms, and vice versa. The faculty and the student in the classroom, will have a real interactive experience. So it's a high end. We put it in all these in all our campuses. Well, obviously, from this perspective, you have to help constantly the faculty learn the system. It's a new system. And, because now the students can follow synchronously in a synchronic way and in an asynchronic way, everything you do. So first, master the technology. Second is our learning teams, and we have a learning center, started working with the faculty, namely when you are providing this kind of lecture in a synchronous and asynchronic way, you are, the content has to be much more user-friendly, much more personalized to the advance of the students. And that's another aspect. And the final one, I can spend hours on that, but in the interest of time, I won't, is essentially, we saw, for instance, that the students interacting with the faculty are eager to interact more. So therefore, this old notion of office hours, was completely transformed, because they can send you a request at 2:00 in the morning, in the evening, etc. And the faculty started telling us, the interactions are really shooting up exponentially. So we had to also think about how to meet the demand for interaction.
How to protect the staff, I would say, became a part of the agenda.
In some ways,
yeah.
it was more how to, this was good for us. It's good that the students are eager for interaction. So what we tried to do is also integrate the students in this interaction, where peer-to-peer interaction is key, and interacting with the faculty is also key.
I have to stop you because the clock tells me the time is up. We could talk for hours, and a good TV interviewer would say you can buy the book or you can borrow the book, and the link is online. But can I say, Joseph, thank you very, very much for getting up early in Boston and for commencing some of us on this journey and for challenging us. We're indebted to you.
Thank you. It has been an honor to be with you. And thank you, Michael. And thank you all.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm going to hand back to Tia, who has a few seconds to introduce the next topic.
Yes, thank you, Joseph and Michael, for a fascinating start for the forum. I think this gives us a good basis to think about how we work in our own universities. And I see that some of you have in the chat already explained how you do or given examples of your experimental learning. What we are going to do right now is to have a 15-minute break. At 12:30, we are going to meet in another room. Those of you who have signed up for it, you have received in your email an invitation to another room where we will be talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and how the university, giving you examples how universities are working towards them. So we hope to see you after a short break. I hope you manage to get a coffee or tea, or if it is a lunchtime at your place, perhaps even a quick lunch. But see you in exactly 14 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, dear.